Marco Pierre White is one of the most decorated chefs in history, with a legacy that includes the record for being the youngest chef to receive 3 Michelin stars at a time. And yet, in 2024, everything Marco stood for is overshadowed by the global success of his once apprentice.
My second option was to live a lie, to pretend I cook when I don't cook, continue to charge high prices, question my own integrity in everything that I've ever worked for.
Gordon Ramsay you're describing here, yes?
I'm just giving you a little bit of clarity.
And sure, a student surpassing his teacher isn't a new concept, but what makes this particular story stand out is the decades-long relationship between Marco and Gordon, which has been anything but smooth, and even escalated to the point of Marco stating that he would never speak to Gordon Ramsay again. And while it's important we learn about the history between these two titans of the culinary world, thanks to today's partner MyHeritage, a platform that uses historical records and data to locate family members, I've managed to track down my family tree. I basically started by simply entering information about my parents and grandparents, and boom, I discovered my great-grandparents and a few other rogue members of the Mima family. In particular, I found out that my great-granddad was a bit of a freak and had 7 kids. Not only that, if it wasn't thanks to all the resources on the site, I wouldn't have been able to find out that he was also a shoemaker in London in the 1930s. Using the 19+ billion historical documents on MyHeritage, you could even find missing offspring. Luckily, I haven't found any link to me yet, but it could only be a matter of time. Not only that, I can also bring my family's old photos back to life, like I did for my granddad here, colouring and even animating him, which did freak out my grandma a little bit when I showed her, but it's brilliant. I use MyHeritage because it's trusted by more than 90 million users, so make sure you sign up for a 14-day free trial in the description below of this video, and enjoy all of the amazing features MyHeritage has to offer. Right, brilliant, that's me paid. Back to the video. Enter Marco Pierre White, a charismatic, intimidating, and frankly handsome bloke who also happened to be an excellent chef. His TV presence broke the negative stereotypes surrounding chefs and popularized the concept of the modern celebrity chef that is all too common today. This isn't to say that he was some wholesome Mr. Rogers type figure, because he still had the attitude and foul mouth of a pro chef.
Get your act together, boys, for f***'s sake. Come on, you, get out the Hey, come here. What the f*** is this shit?
But his overall personality was still charming enough to overshadow this behaviour and make him a celebrity. However, it was his apprentice Gordon Ramsay who showed just how popular a culinary expert can get in the media world. Gordon transcended the label of celebrity chef and became a global celebrity with fans from around the world, many of which likely have zero interest in Michelin stars or the luxury world of high-end cooking in general. But the story of Gordon being a diamond in the rough was built through calluses and years of pressure under Master Marco. You see, Marco started his career in cooking with pure passion and flair for the art behind the profession. He first trained at a few hotels and restaurants in Yorkshire, before moving to London in 1981 when he was just 17 to train classical French cuisine under Albert and Michel Roux, with just £7 to his name. 6 years later, still at the ripe age of 23, Marco opened his own restaurant called Harvey's in London, to great success, so much so that he received his first Michelin star soon after the restaurant's opening, and another star just a year later. By 1995, Marco Pierre White became the first British chef to be awarded 3 Michelin stars, all while he was just 33 years old. However, just when his career was at its peak, Marco did something that no chef had the audacity to do before. He became the first chef in history to give back all 3 of his Michelin stars, giving a big double-fingered fuck you to the institution that dishes out status. And his reasoning was quite simple.
And this little thought came into my head. And that thought was, Marco, you're being judged by people who have less knowledge than you. So what's it all worth? What have I worked all these years for?
In other words, his own understanding and appreciation for the art of cooking was worth more to him than the most prestigious honour a chef can receive. He cared less about the fame of being a 3 Michelin star chef and just wanted to perfect his cooking skills, essentially letting the food do the talking. What made this baller move so truly epic, however, is that Marco giving away the stars didn't impact his reputation one bit. Instead, this stunt shook people's faith in the Michelin star group and started a phenomenon that is still going strong some 25 years later. In fact, through the years, Marco's views on Michelin stars have gotten even worse.
There's a great book called Au revoir by the American journalist called Bernstein. And there's also the book by Bernard Loiseau. And if you read what the old inspectors of Michelin said within those two books, and then you listen to the modern day Michelin inspector, they're worlds apart. The great man Michelin, Mr. Brown, who was then inspector of England and then became the head inspector of France, what that you had to do was prove consistency over many years before they dished out the stars. They had to believe in you. And secondly, you had to be behind your stove. They would never give 3 stars to a chef who wasn't behind his stove. As I say, today, in my opinion, they dish out stars like confetti.
However, this all fits perfectly with Marco Pierre White's simplistic view of the culinary profession. When asked how to succeed by an aspiring chef, this is what he had to say.
If you cook the best fish and chips in England, you'll become famous. If you make the best bacon and eggs in the morning with beautiful organic eggs and beautiful bacon, you'll become famous. If you want to win a Michelin star in your restaurant, then buy beautiful produce and keep it simple. And cook food that you want to eat, not what you think they might want to eat, because it's got to be an extension of you as a man.
Unfortunately, his former apprentice Gordon Ramsay had other plans that went against Marco's philosophies. Gordon began his apprenticeship in the mid-1980s, when he was just 19 years old.
We finished. Oh, I didn't realise. Have you gone through twice? Yes. Oh, right.
Though, as one commenter on YouTube points out, even at 19, Gordon looks like a stressed 40-year-old chef. Which is not an inaccurate assumption, since at the time, Gordon was constantly working 16 hours a day, every day. Overworking to this extent couldn't have been good for Gordon's health, but diamonds are made under pressure. To make matters worse, Marco was not exactly nice in the kitchen either. There are several reports of his abusive outbursts. Even the customers were not safe from his wrath, as he once famously kicked out 8 different customers in just 2 weeks.
Someone told me that you kicked out 8 people in the last 2 weeks. What were the reasons for that?
I think that's right. 8 people in 2 weeks. God, I'm below par.
Why did you do it?
That's all. They must have knocked off an O.
Why did you do it?
Why did I do it? Well, basically, I'm here 18 hours a day, 6 days a week. This is like my house. This is like my home. When I cook every night, it's cooking for people who hopefully are appreciative. And as I say, 90-95% are very appreciative. You've got that other 5% who are incredibly rude, obnoxious. They click their fingers, they arrive late. And I don't want those people in my house. If I came to your house for a dinner party, and I was obnoxious, I was rude, I was late, you going to tolerate me? You're going to ask me to leave, aren't you? But just because they're paying for it, they think they can be rude and obnoxious. Well, in Harvard, they don't get a bill. You just ask them to leave. I don't want their money.
So it's safe to assume that his staff members, including Ramsay, were in the firing line as well. At one point, Marco's barrage of insults got to the extent of breaking his student. Yes, the very same Gordon Ramsay that makes other people cry. Gordon was left a sniffling mess due to Marco's abusive remarks. He said, "I don't care what you do to me, hit me, I don't care. Sack me, I don't care," while weeping on the floor. And when asked about the incident in an interview years later, Marco was still completely indifferent to it.
No, I didn't make Gordon Ramsay cry. He made himself cry. That was his choice to cry.
But on the flip side, Marco did genuinely care for Gordon and wanted to see him succeed. He would beat the shit out of me, in a nice way, where you get elbowed and pushed and shoved. That's how you learn. I think Marco saw a bit of himself in me. He was such a mentor. He knew how important my mum was to me, and he understood how bad my little brother's addiction was. I knew what I wanted, but I hadn't found the right person yet, and Marco was like a big brother. Gordon's admiration for Marco also came from a similar place of relatability.
I think we had similar backgrounds. He lost his mum at a young age. and his father, he didn't have a good relationship. So I think you attach yourself to similar circumstances.
His work ethic and passion for the craft also inspired Gordon to do better, leading to the name Ramsay becoming world famous with breakout roles on Ramsay's Boiling Point, and then later on popular shows like Hell's Kitchen and MasterChef. Today, Gordon has also received 17 Michelin stars, which is an absurd number, considering most chefs never get to see a single one. So the question is, how did this oddly sweet relationship between Marco and Gordon turn so bitter? The thing about the Gordon-Marco feud is that it wasn't due to any single incident that sparked a fight. Instead, it was a culmination of years of resentment and mistreatment that led to the pair falling out after working with each other for nearly 15 years. And since there was no big fight to kick off this feud, fans of the chefs were wondering what happened. However, in 2006 during an interview with The Telegraph, citing two main reasons behind the tattered relationship, the first of which was Gordon's way of doing things as a chef. Marco said, "You can't be a chef and appear on television all the time. It's impossible. At least when I earned my stars, I was always behind my stove." This makes perfect sense coming from someone who gives very little value to Michelin stars, hinting that over the years the institutional rating system has lost its prestige. From his perspective, Gordon increased his focus on the media side of things while ignoring the actual cooking part of the process, which went against his fundamental teachings. Which is true, but is it wrong? A student doesn't have to tread the exact same path as their teacher, especially when they're exceptional at something slightly different, like being a media personality in Gordon's case. So resenting Gordon for not doing exactly what he wanted is not really justified. However, the same can't be said about the next reason Marco mentioned, which was about when Gordon showed up to his second wedding with a camera crew without informing the couple. To make it worse, Gordon didn't even bother telling them after showing up, and only found out about it when the footage was aired on TV without permission. In fact, the first we knew about it was when we switched on the television to watch one of his programs, and saw footage of our big day on the screen. Now, that's disgusting behaviour, isn't it? You tell me, is that the correct way to treat your so-called friend? I don't think so. Marco also recalled an incident where Gordon used one of his former boss's analogies about footballers and chefs, and then turned it against him. I had given an interview in which I said that just not all good footballers make good managers. Not all good chefs make good restaurateurs. Then I read an interview he gave and saw that he was saying exactly the same thing, but implying I was a good chef but not a good restaurateur. However, what this interview also misses out on is arguably one of the biggest cracks that formed between the two chefs. An incident that involved Gordon accusing Marco of petty theft. To give some context, the year was 1998, where computers were practically non-existent in the restaurant industry, so restaurants had to keep track of reservations the traditional way, by confirming reservations over the phone and then writing them down in a ledger called the Reservation book. This process was so important that Marco revealed that at one point his monthly phone bill was over £1,000. So as you can imagine, this reservation book was the lifeblood of high-end restaurants, including Gordon Ramsay's Aubergine restaurant. However, one day, an unidentified man pulled up outside the restaurant on a scooter, dived in, snatched the book, and bolted immediately. This was a serious act of sabotage on the restaurant, which now had to contend with losing its reputation due to disappointed customers, and no one knew who the perpetrator was. And while everyone else was looking for clues on who it could be, Gordon did something unspeakable. He pointed the finger at his former mentor, Marco Pierre White, and accused him of petty theft in the hopes of stifling the success of Gordon's restaurant. It was a baseless accusation without any proof. But the worst part about this whole story is that Gordon Ramsay himself hatched the plan for this heist. And this only got out when he admitted to committing the crime almost a decade later in 2007. It was me. I nicked it. I blame Marco, because I knew that would fuck him and that would call off the dogs. I still have the book in a safe at home. Gordon arranged for the biker to steal it. He further explained, "It was my one stroke of genius, fucking someone over without his knowing that I was the one who done it. And the restaurant owners cutting Marco off and wanting to get closer to me, kissing my arse. You always eat that fucking revenge when it's cold. don't you? Trust me, this was stone cold. I think this situation really displays how cutthroat the high-end culinary industry is. Ego and reputation is everything. Fortunately, the lack of any evidence protected Marco's reputation, allowing him to move forward in his career without much trouble. But this one incident could have just as easily ruined his legacy forever. The silver lining in this whole story is that after decades of beefing with each other, Marco and Gordon finally made up, and started talking again after Marco visited one of Gordon's restaurants for a burger. The complexity of this student-teacher relationship has become one of admiration of excellence and mutual respect between two masters of their craft. It's super interesting to see how two people with very similar mindsets and skills, baked under similar pressures, can be so different and find success in different ways. Thank you so much for watching this video, it really does mean a lot to me. Don't forget to check the description below of this video for a 14-day free trial of MyHeritage. And while you're there, you might as well follow me on all of my socials as well, @Phat Mima.